Hey, it's Dave Wyman from Wyman Bob. A little bit of a football 101, a draft edition here. Just going to go through and take you through every one of the draftees this year, and you know what I saw, what I heard from John Schneider. Really excited about the first pick. Gray Zabel, number 18 pick, 6'6", 312 pounds. The one thing I think that you could say is the knock is that he didn't play in an FBS school. It's an FCS school, so you know, lesser talent, things like that. But a lot of times in football you say, hey, if this is a bad team that we're playing, we should kill them, right? That's what Gray Zabel was doing to his opposition all throughout his career at North Dakota State. First of all, my comp for him is Bruce Matthews. Bruce Matthews was a Pro Bowler during my era at center, guard, and tackle. I played against him a couple of times when he played guard. He was so balanced. Like every once in a while I could come up and really shock a guard by hitting him and knocking him back. And then I would set up a move to try to zip around him. You couldn't do any of those things with Bruce Matthews. He would just absorb every hit, and then he was quick enough and athletic enough to not let you get around with a speed move. So that's kind of my comp as far as what I'm seeing from him. One of the things he said was he needs to be a little bit more locked in, more precise with his feet and hands. And he's exactly right. That's exactly what every guy who comes to the NFL experiences. It's like, why do I have to take a 6-inch step instead of a 12-inch step? It matters, those little things. So one of the things I saw from him on film was there was a couple of times where he's looking at the guy that he's going to block. But then I was like, oh, that's not good. But then I keep watching him, and a lot of times he might be looking out and then block inside and vice versa. So he's really good with that. And a lot of the stance, and I learned this from a guy named Brian Millard that I played with the Seahawks in practice, that you know, he would always make a pass look like a run and a run like a pass. And that's what Gray Zabel also has, that talent. He's really good. He doesn't give away what the play is. A lot of times you have a tell when you're lined up at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have anything like that. The other thing I saw him do was he passed off a stunt better than I've ever seen any offensive lineman. It was just so smooth. Guy in front of him disappears inside. He looks to the inside, here comes the looper, and he just picked it up perfectly. He does a great job with his hands as far as he'll hold a guy, but he knows when to let go. His sense for that, because look, all offensive linemen, they hold. I mean, they're cheaters. He's a guy that is really good at just letting go at just the right time so he doesn't get flagged. The second pick, Nick Emmanwori, they moved up to get him. He is 6'3", 220 pounds, and the guy ran a 4.38 40. And then he had a 43-inch vertical jump, so almost 4 feet in the air. I mean, he's just incredibly explosive, amazing athlete, and yeah, I think he's gonna develop into a guy that is really going to be very versatile on this defense. The thing I liked about them drafting a safety is last year when they got Ernest Jones and they fixed the middle of the defense and Tyrese Knight started playing next to him, the defense got way better. So now you're just adding another guy that's going to play inside. And also somebody said something about him being a mini linebacker. He's not mini. I mean, he's 6'3", 220 pounds. So you can put him in there on rundowns. He can play up in the box. He's a great hitter. But I thought the comparison to Cam Chancellor, obviously everybody's going to make that comparison. I thought Cam Chancellor early on didn't play the ball really well. He became that guy that really played the ball well in the air. Emmanwori already has that, and he's also very physical. So I really like the fact that he's like a hybrid safety and linebacker. The other thing is when you look at highlight films, a lot of times in college, you look at like, okay, who's he going up against? And a few of the interceptions that he had were really bad throws. But I'll say this, he plays those passes really well in the air. When they're up in the air, he takes the right angle to get there. I asked him, would you rather have an interception or a big hit. And obviously you want to get the ball. So he sort of knows what's up there. But he said, if we're playing the 49ers, I'll take the big hit.
Honestly, it depends what team we're playing. If we're playing the Niners, I'll lay a dude out. But, any other team, I'll probably get an interception. I'll get an interception, though.
I thought everybody would love that, that's for sure. Taking a look at Elijah Arroyo out of Miami. He was the number 50 pick in the second round. Here's the thing that stands out the most, the only thing I think anybody needs to know. John Schneider told me that he could play X. He could play receiver in this offense. He's 6'5", 250 pounds. So this guy's a tremendous athlete. Last year, 600 yards, 7 touchdowns his senior year. This could be the guy that maybe is that tight end that we've all been talking about, because Jimmy Graham is the most accomplished tight end in Seahawk history, and it didn't really feel like that with him. But this kid, I think, has a chance. He's very dynamic as far as his size and speed. I thought this was interesting. His comparison was Noah Fant. And so a lot of people have talked about maybe Noah Fant is trade bait, and he also has a pretty high cap number. So, this guy having a good camp and, playing really well in the preseason is going to really matter. Let's start with Jalen Milroe. And I was really excited when they drafted him, because Kubiak, coming from that program in New Orleans where they had Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill ran the ball 39 times for 278 yards, 6 touchdowns, and then he picked up 18 first downs and had a 7.1 yard average. So Jalen Milroe, I think, is maybe a more talented runner. As John Schneider put it, I said, hey, maybe you can put him together in some kind of package, like a third down type of deal. And he said, we're going to use him as a weapon. And I think in the meantime, Jalen Milroe can develop into a really good quarterback. But you can also use him. And I thought third down, short yardage situations last year were a problem. I mean, they lost a game, and maybe 2. I'm thinking for sure the Ram game, where they couldn't pick up a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1. And here's why I love a quarterback running. Typically, a running play, quarterback hands the ball off, and he's a dead player. And it's 10 versus 11. Now you got 11 versus 11, and you see all the different kind of things that you can do with a running quarterback. And he's a big kid. He's 6'2", 225 pounds. So, yeah, really excited about him, and I think they really intend on developing him into a quarterback for the future. He's a pretty good passer, but there's kind of a little hitch in his release, and I'm not a quarterback analyst, but not quite as smooth as, what you would like to see. And so that's where I talk about the development part of it, that they can turn him into a really good quarterback at some point. In the meantime, Mike McDonald after he was drafted, was clear about how Sam Darnold's going to get 90% of the reps during, practice and leading up to the season. So he's going to be ready. But Milroe, I think, is kind of an interesting. And you might keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster on game day, just because, Drew Lock has to be your backup. All right, next player we want to look at is Rylie Mills. He's a 5th rounder. He was picked number 142, 6'5", 295 pounds. One of the things that John told me about him is he has really strong hands. And I was like, I haven't heard that before. First of all, he's very versatile. He can line up at the 3, which is just a shade outside the guard, the 5, the 9 off the edge. He got a knee injury at the end of the year against Indiana. And he told us a story about how he rented an RV and went to the Sugar Bowl to watch the next game. And so just a really fired up kid, got a chance to talk to him. He's one of those guys that just loves football. John thought it was really important to, his comparison was Pierce Holt. So he played during the time when I played. I think it was 88 to 95. And he was a defensive tackle, mostly for the 49ers. And he was just very versatile. You could move him around anywhere. And so look up Pierce Holt and see if you think that that's a good comp for Rylie Mills. Here's the other thing about Rylie Mills. He came in for a 30 visit with the Seahawks. That was his only 30 visit. So they were the only team to bring him in. And what they found out at the 30 visit was that his knee was in much better shape than they thought. And they were really blown away by how much progression he had made with that knee injury. So probably start the season on the PUP list, but maybe halfway through the year, he's able to contribute a little bit. Next player, Tory Horton from Colorado State, wide receiver, picked in the 5th round at number 166, and he's 6'2", 185 pounds, pretty fast. I mean, I asked John, is he one of those guys that can, as they say, take the top off of a defense? And he said yes. And I saw him run his combine 40-yard dash, and I think he ran a 4.41, and he wasn't happy about it. So leads me to believe that he's a little bit faster than that. He's kind of a long strider, in my opinion. I don't see a lot of like quick twitch type of moves. The other thing that you always see in receivers in college is that they don't run super crisp routes. Obviously, he ran enough really good routes, though, to have 13 games in his career of over 100 yards. Here's the thing, and this is, by the way, is one of the reasons why I was so impressed with Zabel, that he talked about his awareness that his feet and his hands have to be better at the next level. And that's the case with a lot of receivers with Tory Horton, not your feet and your hands so much, but running exact, precise routes. You know, you get away with it in college because you can. That's you just run your routes. It's kind of like DK. DK came out of Ole Miss, and he was not a refined route runner. So, I mean, Tory Horton will definitely become that guy because he's the kind of competitor that they like to have at that position. But you look at some of his stuff in college and kind of rounds things off a little bit, but obviously, he had success with those things. So I think because of all the landmarks on the field, and then also just the precision in the passing game and the timing, it has to be on. So that's something that, every player is going to go through. But, I wonder if maybe he might struggle with that just because I don't see that quick twitch type of route running from him. But I think he is going to be a really good prospect, and he's got all the tools, and excited to see him play. Robbie Outs, he's a fullback. He played tight end at Alabama. So he caught a lot of passes from Jalen Milroe, and I would say this, for him, he's 6'4", 270. He's pretty athletic for a guy that big. And so, I was kind of looking around the league, and the Ravens have Ricard, who plays fullback. Robbie Outs is more athletic. It's disappearing, the fullback position, around the NFL, but I think the Seahawks are going to bring it back, and Robbie Outs, he might have a chance to really contribute this year. Not because, they're going to give him the ball a bunch of times, but short yardage situations, he'll be very valuable. So really athletic for a big guy. Pick number 192 in the 6th round, Bryce Cabeldue, offensive lineman out of Kansas. He's 6'6", 315 pounds, and he played in 50 games in 5 years at Kansas. He got beat a couple of times, and a lot of times when an offensive lineman will get beat, he will either lunge or kind of panic a little bit. He's really good with recovery. If he misses, a punch on the offensive line and, the defensive end gets a little bit of penetration, he's able to recover really well. He was kind of one of those combine heroes. Every year I have a discussion with John Schneider about the draft choices, and he said he was a 30-30-30 guy. So he had 30 reps with 225 on the bench, and then he had a 30-inch vertical, and then he had more than 30 on the Wonderlic test. So just a guy that will be a good long-term project at offensive line. Okay, Damien Martinez, a guy that played at Oregon State mostly, but also Miami. He ran a 4.5 so he doesn't have blazing speed. But I'll tell you what, man, this kid runs angry. And, he's one of those guys, kind of a poor man's Marshawn Lynch, which a poor man's Marshawn Lynch is pretty damn good. He doesn't subscribe to that arrangement that you tackle me and I go to the ground. No way. I mean, he's going to fight through it. So I really love this guy at this point in the draft. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Kenny McIntosh, because I know I talk about him a lot. He was a draft choice out of Georgia a couple years ago. We thought maybe Pete didn't like him. And then we thought, well, maybe Mike McDonald didn't like him that much either because he didn't play a lot last year. But I think Damien Martinez might push him for that number 3 running back spot. Pick number 234 in the 7th round is a kid named Mason Richman. He's out of Iowa. And like I said, I talked to John every year after the draft, and the one thing he said about him, there's not a whole lot of information on Mason Richman, but one of the things is that he gave up 7 pressures his senior year at Iowa. So that means no sacks. So he's another good, big offensive lineman that could be a long-term project. Last but not least, Ricky White out of UNLV. This guy's really an interesting player. He led the Mountain West Conference with 1,483 yards and receptions his junior year. So he's a really good route runner. He's kind of a slasher. He had a beautiful catch in the corner of the end zone, which I think would have been, it looked like from the tape, you could see that he got both feet in. So and he crashes into the wall. He doesn't care about his body. He just throws it around. But the interesting thing about him, he had 4 blocked punts this year. So this guy, he's really a good special team player. So I think he's one of those guys that, because of special teams, can contribute right away.